Is
Pasamos la palabra a Bernard Cottier
to Bernard Cottier
de la red
from the
francesa
French
de lo nuclear.
Sortir du nucléaire, getting out of the nuclear energy French network.
Bien. Buenas tardes con todos.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Te voy a pasar algunas
I'm gonna show some slides,
no tanto para
not just for the sake of a long talk, but also to show you some data. Maybe you know it, but at the beginning of this forum, I think it's useful to take into account what is going on throughout at the world level about this. I don't know if you panelists are going to be able to see the slides. You may don't.
No se trata de
This is not about a general survey of the history of nuclear power, of everything happening in the world. I will show some photographs, and the comrades are gonna then filling the gaps, of course, because they know the reality of their specific countries. I'm speaking about nuclear energy in the world after the branch developments of nuclear power and current world perspectives. When I speak of nuclear energy, nuclear power, the French network I am a member of, we do the same. In our country, we must say that the civil nuclear power and military are tightly knit, tightly linked. The same engineers go from one side to the other, they use the same machines sometimes, and they use the same repression of the population when it's needed, like Chico said. I want to remind you that after the Second World War, that when atomic bombs were used with Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and after that, other countries wanted to develop these weapons, the Soviet Union, UK, France. They did many tests, polluting the atmosphere, sometimes the soil, and some other countries joined the nuclear club, Pakistan, India, North Korea, and others. You see the increase of nuclear bombs between 45, and this was the top, 86, some 70,300 nuclear heads, more than enough to destroy the whole solar system. This is totally crazy. After they made this agreement, because it was a costly system in the 80s and 90s, there were these negotiations to reduce the number of nuclear missiles. We are around now some 13,890. You see the chart. Russia and the United States, some 6,000, and then France and other countries, they have enough to harm millions of people, to kill millions of people anywhere in the world. And these weapons have been updated and fine-tuned throughout the years. Meanwhile, also because of ethical minima reasons, some politicians promoted a program that is called Atom Fortis. for peace, sorry, atom for peace, but then they even started new nuclear power plants to produce electric energy, electric power, and you see that after the 70s, many reactors were built, and now we are around some 380, more or less. The situation is more or less there is an stabilization after the Chernobyl accident. Also after the Fukushima, of course, accident, but in spite of everything, there is still people promoting this damned industry because strong economic interests are at play. So the reactors, the number of reactors is not decreasing. So about the power that is being produced, you see that after 2011 and 2012, there has been a decrease of nuclear power electric energy. Because of the Fukushima accident, many reactors were stopped, but after September 7 and 8 have been restarted. This last crisis has been salutary, so to say, because it has showed that a developed country like Japan could face this share of energy without resorting to nuclear power. And some other countries, as you know, they decided to abandon this energy branch. And I'm going to talk something about some developments that are still going on. As you know, they speak of the uranium cycle because it's the feasible matter that is used, also thorium, but they decided to use uranium. And throughout the development of the building of reactors, many mines were reopened in many countries. In France, some 200 mines have been reopened that are not useful anymore, but they're still polluting the environment. And research is still going on. They are doing prospections in Kazakhstan. 40% of the fuel with fracking techniques, they are polluting the whole earth there. They present it as a modern technique, but it's still polluting. You cannot use uranium as such. You have to enrich it for reactors. So they use different techniques that are energy costly. During 30 years in France, they have used 3 reactors just to enrich the uranium. It's a system that spends lots of internal energy, which is meaningless, is absurd. They are thinking about other techniques, but still not using them industrially. I will dedicate some words about the current reactor. This is the map of France because France is such a nuclearized country. It's the first per capita. We have some 58 reactors. Now, this is the 2014 map. Now, currently, almost all reactors are more than 30 years old, so they are almost out of the useful life. But the authorities and the corporations want to keep on using them, investing lots of money some 1 billion euros for every reactor, and this confirmed what Irene was saying. This industry is spending lots of money, hindering the development of other energy sources, renewables, and the saving of energy also. This is a concern, a great concern in my country, but I see that everywhere, also in Argentina. I've been talking to the comrade Christian Pablo. It's the same in Spain also. So you cannot say that this nuclear branch is about excellence because they don't know how to keep the maintenance of the reactors. But anyway, the stopping, the closure is soon because they cannot replace the vessels, so they are gonna stop, but hopefully before the accident. They are thinking about new reactors, so to say, new reactors. We have the RPR in France, should be built in 7 years, and it's 12 years now and still not working. And they found out recently that the secondary circuit has some shortcomings, some problems. It was built inside strong concrete walls, and they cannot penetrate. Also, the Russian plants, the Chinese plants, anything could happen. So we should refuse the myth of excellence about nuclear issues. We are also facing the issue of radioactive waste, of course. We have some 50 billions of cubic meters of radioactive waste in France after some 50 years use. So I'm not gonna go into details. There are 3 ways of research: the transmutation, the acceleration of the radioactive growth, the deep geological dumps. We are struggling with the government and the police force repressing us against a project of some 500 meters under the earth, underneath cemetery, and the very engineers into this are have doubts about that technique. If you want to speak more about this, we may do it in the discussion, but this is going to have an impact of any country with nuclear waste. In France, they made the decision of recycling, but it's not really a recycling. It's the separation of the matter in the waste. It was about extracting plutonium because the military were asking for more plutonium. And after all this waste recycling, there are some 5,000 tons of plutonium. You know that 5 kilograms is the critical mass, so you have a plutonium bomb in a plant of 400 some several hundreds of acres for the processing of this uranium, and the French, they don't know where to place the fuel, where they recombine plutonium and uranium to put it into the reactors, and they are thinking about building new pools to place it, and it's gonna be cold it for some 50, 60 years. So you realize which kind of energy it is. Of course, I'm not gonna speak about all the projects, research projects with new reactors. that are going on in the world. Gunther will speak about the small modular reactors, small power reactors that are gonna be installed and are already installed in some submarines. And since then, the engineers, technocrats, I have shown some images, many more could be shown. The imagination about this is infinite. They are thinking of machines to build small reactors that could be installed everywhere, but with reduced costs, but contributing, of course, to the dissemination of dangerous equipment and of the risks related to nuclear power. They speaking also of thorium reactors is another fuel alternative to uranium that has the so-called advantage of being more controllable, easily controllable with low pressure, higher temperature, but it's a matter that cannot be used alone. You have to mix it with plutonium to start it up and to keep the fission processes. So this is a myth. The thorium reactor is just another myth. If anybody is interested, we may speak longer about this. Nuclear fusion reactors. Tomorrow there will be a workshop about ITER. This famous reactor, but it's not really a reactor, it's a prototype that is being built in the south of France with the help of 35 countries, but funded mostly by the European Union, some 45 share of it, and France, of course, the main partner. And this prototype is to put it briefly, is about reproducing fusion radiation of light atoms that happen in the sun, and sometimes the ITER say that they are going to reproduce the sun. That's their pretension. We're still far away to being able to do that, but the truth is we don't know if it will work someday, but they're spending lots of money, costly investments for this prototype. Some 20 billion euros is the ground budget, but we all know that it will be more expensive. Now, by now, they have spent some 8-9 billion euros to build, just to build the plant. And some physics say that this fusion technology is really dangerous because of high energy neutrons. So hopefully it will never work. World perspectives. If I speak of civil nuclear power, this is some stats about what's happening now. They are building, still building nuclear reactors, classical ones, pressurized, mostly in Asia, as you know, in China mostly, also in India, and also in Pakistan. They're gonna go building along this line. In the USA, they're still building nuclear reactors, and in France, I have just spoken about the RPR that they want to build and expand throughout the world. By the French still couldn't make it. So I think that we must pay attention to what's happening in some countries. And especially, and Pinar is going to confirm this, what's happening. But we may say the same about Latin America. The Russians are pretty proactive about promoting the technology with this Rosatom firm, and they are pretty aggressive. I read recently that they want to build reactors in Africa, in Zambia. They want to install reactors in spite of the fact that that country has lots of renewable energy sources. As Forum, we should denounce those countries, aggressive countries, about nuclear issues. I think that we also should denounce not just the French, but also the Chinese, because in Argentina, the Chinese are present there. Pablo could witness about what's happening in Patagonia. The Chinese wanted to build a reactor there. They don't need it at all. So the struggle against the nuclear power goes on in spite of all the difficulties, of the accidents. We must keep the vigilance. We must denounce the risks. About the military nuclear power, military weapons, it's true there are less nuclear weapons than in the 80s, but many responsible leaders in Russia, United States, even the French government, or in China, North Korea, nuclear weapons are going to be perfected, fine-tuned, updated, and they are asking for really, really costly budgets, and this has important social consequences. We should never forget that. ICANN has been able, the non-proliferation treaty, the ICANN, the countries that have nuclear weapons are against the treaty, and they are never gonna sign it. So we don't know the impact of that treaty, where the stronger powers with nuclear weapons are able to block the whole process about decrease of nuclear weapons. Also, those countries, they make good business, pretty good businesses about that. In France, the French connection, so to say, there is a French connection about that. There are corporations that earned lots of money. For instance, in France, until now, they were spending some 2-3 billions for nuclear weapons. They decided recently to regenerate it, to modernize it. It's going to cost some 6 billion euros yearly to France that could be used for social goals. And to end my talk and to support, to strengthen those Chico was speaking about, it seems unbelievable that so few people cares about this. But radioactivity is increasing in the air, in waters, in the soil. We are controlling radioactivity in the rivers, and it's been increased, particularly about tritium, and this is pretty serious. Reactors are getting old, creating more irreversible accident risks, The nuclear lobbies are still doing propaganda with the politicians, with the public, but some signs of hope are emerging. There are people rising. I showed a photo of Patagonia, the region of my comrade Pablo, where they refused that Chinese reactor project. Pablo will deal with this in the workshop. We must denounce the lies, the craziness of nuclear power technocrats. But the risks are increasing. The RPR and the costs are also increasing. And with the RPR, we are around 12 billions investment, and we still don't know if it's going to work. The alternatives seem reachable, desirable. In a workshop, I will speak about energy transition, but there are solutions, there are alternatives, and speaking positively, our comrades, our citizens, this may lead them to make decisions that will go beyond the brainwashing that they have done with nuclear power, that we can do things differently, and this is desirable for our children and grandchildren. So let's keep on creating links in our struggles. Thank you.